Thanks a lot. Hi, everyone, and thanks for the invitation. And I'm afraid I have a little bit a different approach to the issue. It might be a little bit more eclectic or philosophical, so to speak. And I will use a little bit international style of reading it to you, just to spare you with my bad rhetoric and maybe to cover more ground. So to grapple with AI governance, we need to see that technology is this great paradox, right? It has made industrial revolutions possible, while that technology is also part of the biggest threat we are facing today, which is climate change. So the question is, do we face the same fate with AI? Does it help us with decarbonization? And at the same time, do we kind of create a new monster, kind of a new existential threat? Or does AI and technology even fail to sort out some of the most pressing issues today, like climate change? So to understand that risk, I think we need to look more closely at this relationship between technology and humans, or politics and science. And of course, I don't want to say that the politics is here the bad guy. So when we and we should not forget that governance is a form of politics, right? The possibility of collaborating under shared principles. So, but when we look at let's say COVID, we knew from the beginning what was basically happening, and today we are looping between the hard and soft lockdowns. And you want to decide, or you can decide, considering the 5 emotional stages of experiencing grief and hardship where we are. Those are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I think, despite the science, those emotional stages basically are more accurate in highlighting what we do or what we not do against the COVID. So you can maybe try to find out yourself where you are at those stages. Again, at the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I think those stages rather explain better the political agenda of fighting COVID. So for some science should not determine political decisions, right? Based on ideas of freedom of economic activity or other political identities, while canceling out other identities. So to understand that better, we maybe have to look a little bit into history. Us humans, we always have taken ourselves very important ontologically and morally, and we put ourselves at the center of the universe, right? So, but that human-centeredness has also experienced maybe 3 big assaults, or 3 big faults, if you wish. First, again, was the Copernican revolution. The Earth is not at the center. Second was Darwin theory. We are not God's creation. And the third might be not that obvious, but it's psychology, and with Sigmund Freud, that we are even not the master of our own psyche. So we are rather determined by some outside forces, well, like social media and fake news, maybe. So maybe apropos fake news, I just want to maybe highlight the twisted nature of fake news here. It's not just about who has an interest in disinformation. It's not just that question, but which dominant group fears of having lost the monopoly of legitimate lying. So it's a little bit twisted here. But so why science and technology has radically undermined our self-love as human, our human-centeredness. At the same time, science has moved center stage, right? So we might call this technocentrism. So with that technocentrism, actually, we have thought to control nature even more than we took ourselves serious in the past as a humanity. So in other words, over the centuries, we have continued taking ourselves even more serious while increasingly hiding behind science. So I don't want to say that science is something bad here, but you can see or notice that science is also often used an excuse for political inaction or climate inaction, for example. So I'm coming more to artificial intelligence in a second. So why is science so powerful? So science is obviously a human artifact, but it is not a social construction or an expression of a certain group, like those deniers who fear or negotiate, accept. But science is the real of our historical moment that which remains the same in all possible symbolic universes. So basically, science cannot replace by another cognitive dialectic based on hypothesis and verification. This scientific drive, coupled with capitalist productivity, the two fundamental ethics, by the way, those two ethics lack the ethic of common good, explain the ongoing over-reliance on technology for solving human problems. You can ask yourself, will carbon reduction and geoengineering technologies primarily sort out climate change? Maybe on the contrary, the focus on technology probably has withheld bolder political actions. So with the scientific drive as being the real, the so-called dual-use dichotomy of AI is thus not a simple choice between doing good or bad, but it constitutes as a void of undecidability that is carried forward in history. Yesterday, you might have noticed Henry Kissinger in Welt. He said, he's a former Secretary of State under Nixon, he just warned the United States and China to guard against an all-out AI conflict. So let's move forward. So I'm about to conclude. So the fear actually of dystopian AI, and I have not talked about what AI is and where it's going. So that is you're much better in that. But the fear of dystopian AI lies in its potentially all-encompassing objectification of human experience. The access to all factual knowledge might not only threaten jobs, undermine social cohesion and shift power relations and equity, but also deprive humans of the subjectivity through which we experience our autonomy and freedom. So now, basically, we have another way to distinguish between these previous industrial revolutions and the so-called AI revolution. So while the former gave us subjectivity, the latter might take it again while we're becoming objectified. So the gap between self and reality will shrink. We were hiding behind technology. Now we risk that technology kind of swallows us up. So once our brains are fully connected, digitalized, and with access to some sort of collective brain, we might not even recognize whether it's us who is thinking or whether it's someone else or something else. Once again, it's not us who is thinking, whether it's someone's or some else's thoughts, and that we are doing something that was basically uploaded to our brain. So to conclude, the only thing that might be left to Slavoj Žižek, which is a great philosopher here, might be our doubt, the ability to question, which means pure void, basically the essence of our subject, or what René Descartes called the cogito. So, but so unlike some very influential practitioners or theorists of singularity, this process, this might open up actually a different path towards a future where our emancipatory drive is able again to create a new possible and even new desirable worlds. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Mr. Jelinek. Perfect in time.